Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession. In my last video, I took a look at the themes and meaning of Robert Eggers' horror masterpiece, The Witch, and today I want to do a similar analysis for Ari Aster's more controversial film from 2019, Midsommar. This is a pretty polarizing movie, with many people praising the costume design, lighting, overall aesthetic, and exploration of grief and acceptance from two very different cultural viewpoints. Others, such as YouTube star Critical Drinker, called it the worst movie they had seen that year due to the nonsensical plot, irrational characters, and jumbled message. There is a lot to unpack with Midsommar, but I wanted to focus on one very specific aspect of the film, which is whether the film has a bleak, monstrous ending or whether it has an optimistic, hopeful one. If you have not seen the movie, it is worth watching. Whether you end up loving it or hating it, Midsommar is a unique film that will certainly make you feel things. David Fincher has said movies are all about making a bunch of strangers feel something together.
Get into square footage, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make strangers feel something at the same time. So everything that you do as you are defining what you're going to do is about making strangers feel something all at the same time.
And to this end, Midsommar is excellent. From the shocking beginning to the disarming middle to the shocking ending, Midsommar is virtually guaranteed to make you feel some strong emotions, and is unique enough to set itself apart from and be memorable compared to most movie offerings. People complain about lack of original ideas and the assimilation of the industry by superhero movies, franchises, remakes, and soft reboots, and Midsommar is at least a pretty original film, which obviously borrows a lot from other alluring cult movies like The Wicker Man, but it is an original presentation of that and absolutely worth your time. There is some shocking imagery, yes, but this is horror. Get over it. Okay, from here on out there will be spoilers, and if you want to avoid the spoilers, skip ahead to the 0-minute, 0-second time code from the movie Midsommar, and then watch for 2 hours and 28 minutes. Alright, so Ari Aster does something masterful with this film, since depending on how susceptible the individual viewing the movie is to the persuasion and suggestion of the movie itself, you will either end the film feeling as though Dani has finally found peace and acceptance and learned how to move on from her grief by discovering a community which embraces her emotions and helps her bear the unbearable pain of losing her entire family, or you will see a vulnerable young woman who becomes brainwashed by a death cult that murders her boyfriend and all of her friends, effectively removing her individuality and assimilating her to the collective in much the same way the characters are turned in body snatcher films. Some of you may be listening to this and thinking, well, I can't believe anyone would have that opinion, but I assure you there are many people on both sides of this. For example, an article by Adam Chitwood over at Collider titled, "We Are All in This Together," explains, quote, "And well, yes, by the Midsommar ending, Dani's boyfriend Christian is being burned alive in a ritualistic barn, literally inside the carcass of a bear, alongside the mutilated corpses of her friends. Dani has found a sense of community. Whether she's horrified or related, she's at least found a family in which those emotions can be shared." End quote. In order to break down this sentiment, let's take a look at the major story beats so we are all on the same page. The movie starts out with Dani, the protagonist,
I'm the protagonist.
who is worried about a concerning, suicidal-sounding email her sister sent her. Her boyfriend, Christian, blows her off since he has been feeling overwhelmed by her emotional neediness lately and is planning to break up with her, a decision his friends all support and are coaxing him into. His plan to break up with her gets put on hold when he and the audience find out together that Dani's sister killed their parents and then committed suicide, leaving Dani without a family. She is completely, understandably overwhelmed and stricken with grief, and Christian is effectively left with no choice but to continue the relationship. I mean, what kind of an asshole breaks up with someone whose entire family just died? The movie skips ahead and Dani is still struggling with her intense grief, and Christian is clearly aloof and emotionally distant. So much so, in fact, he has planned a 6-week trip to Sweden to visit their friend Pele's family, part vacation and part thesis research for Josh, who is doing his anthropology PhD thesis on Midsommar rituals. Dani finds out on accident, and then Christian feels he has no choice but to invite her along so she doesn't feel abandoned, and off we go. Everyone goes to Sweden and are greeted in the field by some people who immediately offer them shrooms, which they end up somewhat reluctantly taking.
You want to wait for us then?
You know what? It's fine. It's fine.
Babe,
I'm
babe,
ready. No,
Don't
it's
feel
okay.
rushed.
I don't. It's fine. I'm ready.
After their trip, which starts out good for Danny but turns bad quickly once she is reminded of her family, they wake up the next day and it's still light out. Turns out this area is sunny perpetually this time of year in Sweden, creating more confusion for Danny and her friends as they struggle to keep track of time, resulting in worsening disorientation. The rest of the movie takes place over the following week, as the Harga, the name of the Swedish commune/cult, show the visitors their customs, aka ritualistic sacrifices, including forcing anyone over 72 to commit suicide by jumping off a cliff. Simon and Connie, two visitors from another group, have had too much and decide to leave, but Simon goes missing and supposedly abandoned Connie. Connie, who's upset by this, wanders off as well and then is never seen again. Over the next few days, our group breaks some of the commune rules, such as taking a picture of their holy book and peeing on the holy tree under which they bury their cremated dead. After these faux pas, we see Josh get murdered and Mark disappear, leaving Christian and Danny remaining. They are extremely weirdly unconcerned about the disappearance of all their friends.
What about Josh, though?
I'm honestly not too concerned.
And continue going along with the Harga rituals, including Danny joining a dance stamina competition. Christian has been continuously drugged ever since he arrived, clearly noticeable because Ari Aster shows the entire thing on an insert shot earlier.
Had a love story.
Christian continues to be drugged and tries turning down a drink, but they insist and essentially force him to drink it, which leads to him being raped by one of their young women. Before anyone questions this description, Christian gets roofied and forced to have non-consensual sex with someone. I have no other way to describe that besides rape. Well, how do we know it's non-consensual? I mean, we see him eyeing her a couple of times in the film like he's considering it. Well, how about the fact that after the drugs start to wear off, he runs away from the situation in terror? Reverse the genders of Christian and the girl in this scene, and you'll see what I mean. Alright, so anyway, Danny has won the dance competition and gets crowned May Queen, and she gets told she will be a part of the family now. She is being escorted back to town when she hears the ritual where Christian is being raped, and then goes to check it out, and magically a bunch of the cultists are there to comfort her. They cry with her in unison, completely accepting her into the collective and helping her cope with emotional trauma by sharing in her grief. Next, she is totally covered in flowers and told the Midsommar festival was all about ritualistic sacrifice of 9 people. There are 4 outsiders, who were her friends and the other couple, and 4 Harga, the 2 elderly people from earlier, and 2 volunteers. The 9th person is Danny's choosing, and it is either a randomly selected member of the Harga or Christian, who is now paralyzed with some drug and can neither talk nor move. Danny chooses Christian, and they burn him along with the 8 others in their Burning Man-esque wooden structure, and the final shot of the movie is Danny initially being horrified with her choice, but her frown turns upside down, and by the final shot she is smiling, her entire perspective realigned to accept the ritual sacrifice and find catharsis for the death of her former life. Alright, so based on the language included in my summary, you can probably guess how I feel about this movie. Ari Aster uses every filmmaking trick in the book to seduce and hypnotize the audience to empathize with the Harga, dragging the viewer along a similar emotional journey as Danny. He uses the bright lighting and constant sunshine, along with the simplistic but beautiful costume design to distract the viewer from the terrors right in front of them. He shows Danny and her friends brutal, disturbing violence at the same time as the audience, effectively daring you to snap out of the spell the movie has placed on you. He then kills the rest of the cast one by one in what equates to a slasher film, except instead of a singular killer like Jason or Michael, the entire Harga collective is the villain whittling down the cast. Make no mistake, however, they are absolutely brutal and terrifying, including skinning someone and then bashing Josh over the head in a clear reference to Leatherface. Aster also uses depth of field to mirror the subtext of the film beautifully. The audience and Danny are both distracted by the gorgeous visuals of the area, the unwavering niceness of the Harga, and the calming, soothing, diegetic music. Diegetic just means the music we hear is actually being produced in the film, like these people playing the flute. While Christian, Josh, Mark, and Danny are distracted, the real story is happening in the background, which perfectly parallels the way Aster shoots the film. Take this scene, where Mark and Josh are walking to talk to Pele. In the background, we see the Harga using their axes to chop wood, and another man in the background is digging a grave, right in front of Christian, but no one seems to notice or care. Along the same lines, Aster uses the Harga to throw the plot of the movie in your face, and dares the character and audience to notice. From showing the plan to drug and rape Christian early on, to them telling Mark the kids are playing a game called Skin the Fool, and then skinning Mark, who is obviously playing the role of the slasher victim stereotype, the Fool, to the conversation with Christian where a member of the Harga tells Christian incest is a potential problem due to the small size of their community, so they have to sometimes bring in outsiders to mate. Christian? He's talking about you, buddy! My point is, Aster tells us, the audience, and the characters themselves exactly what is going to happen to them, and they go along with it anyway. Viewers of the movie can also easily be seduced by the bright lighting, the relaxing sound design, and the diffusion of responsibility to any individual member of the Harga, because their murders are unquestionably supported by each other. As a result, Danny and Christian barely even notice what is happening to them before it's far too late. A clearly cautionary message to the dangers of cults and indoctrination, and how easy it can be to fall under their influence, especially emotionally damaged people who already feel isolated and alone due to trauma. Aster himself has said in interviews that Midsommar is an operatic breakup film.
That's still the only way I really feel comfortable describing the film. It's an operatic breakup movie.
Meaning in his mind the central story is between Danny and Christian. He's almost begging the viewer to not read too deeply into the underlying message of the movie, showing us over and over that the Harga are a murderous cult and Danny is effectively being killed as well. While her body is still alive by the end of the film, her individuality has been removed and replaced by something different. Something lacking individuality and being wholly devoted to the collective, basically being body snatched. Remember the Adam Chitwood article from earlier? Earlier in the same piece, he said, quote, "At the beginning of the film, Danny is alone in her grief. At the end, she's sharing not just her grief and pain, but joy and celebration. When her family died, Christian and his friends failed to fill in the gap. She was alone, isolated, and lacking any considerable empathy or compassion from those around her. By the film's end, she's embraced the values of the commune, values of community, and found family, and finally feels seen, heard, and felt," end quote. Ari Aster uses imagery to reinforce this comparison. For example, when Danny stands to see her feet melding with the ground, she is imagining herself becoming a part of the Harga cult in a great use of visual storytelling. Danny's primary fear is that of being alone or abandoned, accentuated by the recent murder and suicide of her sister and parents. She has a dream her friends are leaving her with the Harga, and this sense of rejection is the most painful thing for her. She comes to find the Harga are accepting and willing to help her share these burdens, always grieving with her rather than finding her grief uncomfortable and asking her to grieve alone, like Christian and her friends were doing earlier.
I'm gonna go.
Just take some time to yourself, okay?
At the end of the day, Aster performs one of the greatest sleights of hand by a director in recent memory, by convincing a significant portion of the people who saw this movie that the death cult who murders the entire cast is actually the good guy, and Christian and Danny's friends are the evil bad guys. Realigning the perception of the audience to match Danny's is genius, since if not presented properly to the audience, Danny's acceptance and conversion to the death cult would not be believable. I think the people who ended up not liking this movie, like The Drinker, are the people who were not seduced by the lighting, costume design, production design, and soundtrack, and subsequently were left with a sense of befuddlement at how anyone could fall for the Harga. Lots of people did fall for the brainwashing, however, which I think goes to show how intoxicating and alluring the sense of community and sense of belonging that cults offer can be. This boils down to whether you believe this movie has a happy ending or a sad ending, demonstrated perfectly by Ari Aster being asked this question.
So I think this might be a happy ending. What do you and I'm curious what your response is to that.
Well, it is, I don't know, it's designed to be cathartic, and it's designed to play as a happy ending.
Aster is having a tough time coming up with a polite way of saying, hey man, I did intend for you to believe the ending is a happy ending, because the entire construction of the movie is meant to hypnotize and trick you into believing this, which parallels the brainwashing that happens to Danny. So in a sense, you are right, it does have a happy ending, but in another very real sense, the movie is about a cult murdering an entire group of friends and removing the individualism from Danny and brainwashing her into the cult. Overall, Midsommar is a well-shot, well-acted, unique horror movie with shocking, brutal violence juxtaposed perfectly with calming, soothing cinematography and sound design, which conspires to capture your attention and then brainwash both the characters in the film and the audience watching. Midsommar cautions us against the temptation to pursue a sense of belonging and togetherness at all costs, asking us to question whether we can or should be willing to accept horrific murder as the price of happiness and a sense of community. As Christian said,
I'm honestly not too concerned.
yeah, well, maybe you should have been.